Let's talk about numbers. You brought it up. There have been so many different schools of thought about numbers. Plato used to believe that numbers are independent, that they reside in this Platonic realm, the Platonic heaven. Aristotle used to believe they are grounded in something concrete, like some real structures out there. And then Immanuel Kant, I'm putting forward a third one, used to believe that numbers are just grounded in your mind, like there's a form of conceptualism. So if you were to approach this from Quine's framework, and I also want to get your thoughts on this, do numbers exist? Is the number one nothing but a name that we've given, or just a language you've developed to understand the world? Or is number an independent entity that actually exists out there?
So Quine first.
Yeah.
Quine thinks that yes, numbers do exist. And his argument for the existence of numbers is that our best theory, mathematical physics, requires numbers to be given in order to get a decent interpretation of the theory.
This is the indispensability argument?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's the indispensability argument for numbers. And that's been contested within Quine's framework by people like Hartree Field, who've tried in a book tellingly entitled Science Without Numbers. Field tries to show how you can do at least certain parts of physics without invoking numbers. But that's sort of ongoing controversy about what the indispensability argument really shows with numbers. But that's Quine's answer. You also asked about what my view is, and I agree with Quine. Numbers exist, but not. While I don't disagree with his reasons, I think there's much simpler and far more compelling reasons for saying that numbers exist. And here's a few trivial arguments for the existence of numbers. Are there numbers between 4 and 7? Obviously, yes, there are numbers between 4 and 7, but it follows by standard logical inference that if there are numbers between 4 and 7, then there are numbers, in particular the ones between 4 and 7. Or, are there prime numbers? Well, yes. So there are numbers, including the primes. So I think there are trivial inferences, or what are called adjective drop inferences from like prime number to number, where you drop the adjective prime. There are trivial adjective drop inferences from premises that are mathematically so obvious, like there are numbers between 4 and 7, that no philosophical argument against numbers could possibly have greater weight in terms of obviousness and plausibility than the plausibility of these mathematical truisms. So I think, so I agree with Quine's conclusion, but I think he had a much simpler, more direct, and almost irresistible argument from just obvious mathematical truisms. For Quine, the methodology of doing metaphysics, recall, was regimenting your best theory, mathematical physics for him, and seeing what you had to, what had to be in the domain for the theory to come out true. But on the argument that I'm giving, it didn't really matter what physics comes to say about the world. Every school child who learns about the number system, who learns that 5 and 6 come between 4 and 7, is already in position to know that there are numbers. So the detour, I would say detour, through sort of advanced science isn't even required to pretty conclusively establish the existence of numbers. One last proviso. That's not to say anything about the nature of numbers. That's not to say whether they're entities in Platonic heaven or Aristotelian concretely grounded things or Kantian conceptual projections, roughly speaking. It's to say they exist, but to leave open what their nature is.
You have a hunch where they belong?
I'm officially neutral on the question, but my hunch is Platonistic.
Okay.
For the following reason, all of the attempts that I've seen to try to get underneath numbers and make sense of numbers in pre-numerical terms fail. Because it seems to me that numbers and numerical thought are so deeply baked in to our way of understanding consider an Aristotelian idea that numbers are grounded in the structure of the concrete realm. That would mean that we'd have to make sense of the concrete realm and it having a structure without yet bringing numbers in. such that we could say, oh, here's the structure of the concrete realm, and numbers, in some sense, emerge out of that. But how are we to make sense of the structure of the concrete realm without mathematical concepts in the first place? So that makes me tentatively inclined to thinking that Plato had it right.
So in other words, if an alien civilization were to land on Earth tomorrow, there would be mutual agreement on the fact that there is something out there that represents number one, that the digits of pi are the digits of pi. They may have a different language for it, but there would be mutual agreement that these exist.
I would hope. I mean, presumably, if they're capable of flying a spaceship here, they're pretty smart and probably can engage in the game of reasons at least as well as we can. So, yeah, I think I would expect they would find these arguments from like prime numbers to numbers equally compelling.